Found Us, More podcast, where we want you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now.
What? All right. It's already here. I can't believe it's already happening. We're already here for another week of More Podcast. Welcome this week to our podcast. The More Podcast is now fortified with more vitamins and nutrition this summer that you need to make your spiritual health even better. Just one weekly helping added to your current media diet, and you'll feel like $1 million gospel bucks. Just ask any of our current subscribers that you see on Sunday. Well, here to help me with your weekly dose of more goodness, the only guy I know who wants for Christmas a McCafe machine from McDonald's, Pastor Gary.
Oh, absolutely. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be so cool to have one in your house?
Yeah. And my co-host, the human pretzel himself, Mr. Flexibility, Pastor Alex Norco,
Yes.
1,000 milligrams.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Thank you. Better living through medicine. Yeah, he's talking about I somehow blew out my back picking up a tool. And it started a whole chain reaction of me. Basically, now I'm walking around with a cane. But, God's working on it, right?
Yeah, we just had the healing service.
We had the healing service. I wasn't able to be there. Yeah. But somebody in our church had me connect with somebody that's going to help me start working on rehabilitation. So
nice.
I'm just praising God for people in our church that are so helpful.
For the back or the Norco?
Both, really. It's kind of funny because I had to take one before I got up here because of walking the steps up.
Yep.
So we're going to see what happens with this podcast.
Okay.
It might go a little off script here. So how's your week been going? I know you've been really busy going on, and I think you should give a plug to all the people in our church that they should you need help.
Yeah. So one of our men has taken a new position in a new company, and that's super awesome. And we're kind of filling in the blanks here with the facilities director role. And
well, let me just stop you there. Mm-hmm. It's not it's you and Lisa Kay that are filling in the gap right now.
We are,
yeah.
And so we've been working super hard. We've been starting at 5 a.m. every morning.
Yeah.
And,
oh my gosh.
And I finished. Not last night, but the night before, I finished up at 12:30 a.m. So we're doing about 19 and a half hours a day.
Oh, my goodness,
and, but we're killing it, doing good things. A lot of things are getting accomplished. I got a great team around me.
Yeah.
And we just had a week where we had the perfect storm. So you were out with your back.
Yep.
Pastor Amy was in Alaska. One of our custodial crew, Beth, was in Alaska. Pastor Matt's in Montana. Alan took a new position.
Yeah.
And so we had 5 staff members.
What else could go wrong?
So Lisa Kay and I were juggling a lot of duties. But God's been good. We've been getting a lot done.
I'm just going to put it out there. Okay. I mean, I think it's awesome that we have a pastor and his wife that are willing to step up to the plate and do this kind of stuff when nobody really knows about it, because I don't think anybody really knows. Lisa Kay definitely is doing stuff around here, but the place is getting clean because she's cleaning it.
Yep.
So I want to give a challenge to our podcast listeners. Find a way this Sunday to show some love to Pastor Gary and Lisa Kay. Pastor Gary likes maple syrup, and Lisa Kay likes anything that has to do with planting or whatever. She likes
gardening, and
she likes mushrooms too.
Yeah.
Mushroom merch.
Yeah, she likes that red mushroom with the white dots on it. That's her favorite.
I think we should just kind of like show them our love for them stepping up to the plate, because they didn't have to do it. They could just let this whole place go to heck, if they needed to, because they're so busy with other things. So I think we should definitely show them our love this week.
But we do have Brian and Anna Lee still on the team doing great. I mean, fabulous. And of course, Beth is back now. And so, we're getting back to full force.
Yeah.
And so it's all going to be good. And I do have some interviews tomorrow for filling that position. And we've got 3 wonderful candidates. And so hopefully we can see light at the end of the tunnel.
Is there a chance that we could hire somebody like the groundskeeper from the Caddyshack? Remember Bill Murray?
Yeah, Bill Murray, yeah.
I think that would be an amazing hire right there.
It would.
It'd be so much fun for the staff.
It'd be the Cinderella story.
Yeah. So, interesting enough, we have some weddings coming up. You have Annalie and John. They're getting married. Mm-hmm. And did you hear what I got myself into?
I did, and I've never heard of this before. So I've done pre-marriage counseling in this way, but I've not done an actual wedding this way.
So the couple that I'm marrying is Mark Claire's daughter and her husband Garrett, and they want really badly to have a pastor do the wedding. Well, they went around to all the pastors in the area, and they're like, if you don't come to our church, we're not going to do the wedding. And I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, I'm one of those kind of guys that I want to make it kosher before God. And I'm like, let's do it.
Yep.
And I'm just so excited about this. So, but the thing we're doing is we're doing a Zoom wedding.
Okay.
So I'll be half of me will be dressed up and the other half will be in pajamas.
Okay. There we go. Returning back to COVID days.
Yeah, right. I know. So it'll be interesting. So that's happening on the radar. I don't know.
So a Zoom wedding.
Zoom wedding. Yeah. It's the first. It is a first for me.
Yeah.
I've never done a Zoom wedding before.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes. So that's going on in Harbor Light, but we got all these different things. The prayer room is still moving ahead. We're almost done, right?
Well, they're getting ready to hang drywall. And once you hang the drywall and all that, then it really starts looking like it's coming together.
Yeah.
Drywall, door, and carpeting will make the place look amazing. So waterfront construction.
Oh, that's who's been doing it.
Yeah, they're doing great.
I was trying to remember back in the day. I was telling Amy about when I used to be a teenager that would go in there and pray. Mm-hmm. I felt like the ceilings were like 90 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that high anymore, right? It's going to go bring it back up to the original height.
Yep. We just have a big beam going across there.
That's a big beam. I love that.
It's like the biggest beam ever.
Right. And we didn't have to have one before.
No, because there was a wall. So that room is now twice as big as it used to be.
Oh, really?
It actually only used to be half that size. Can you imagine praying in a room that small with a number of people? We had 24-hour prayer vigils in there, all kinds of stuff. And so I can't imagine. It was just so small. Now it'll be twice as big. And so it had a load-bearing wall. Yeah. That's why we had to put in the beam.
But I remember bringing all the praise team in there to pray, usually before service.
Yeah.
And it was with Dave Moody was the first one I started working with.
Yep.
And fitting everybody in there, we were being a little tight circle, right, in that room and praying, and it was a good time. But I'm glad that's coming back. That's definitely a legacy room for this church,
For sure. And I'm really excited that we're doing that room first in our entire remodel.
Yeah.
We're setting the groundwork down with the foundation and the spiritual foundation with prayer. And so that's really awesome.
I think it is. I think it's going to be exciting, and I hope people definitely utilize it. Mm-hmm. And I know you're going to be adding some little perks that are different in the room than have been before, which will be nice. And so, because I remember there's like one iridescent light that was in there before.
Almost like the one light bulb hanging down from the center of the room, right? Yeah.
It was so dark in there, but that's why you would pray so well, because you didn't look at the person you're praying with.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some interesting summer conversations for you to bring to the table again this weekend, or whenever you have a chance to listen to the podcast. Things that we want you to, feel like you have a say in a conversation, to get people involved, because one of the things that we like to do is spend time with family. Mm-hmm. And if you're like me, being this uber introvert, I don't know what to say half the time. So it's nice when I have something I could bring up,
okay,
and at least start the conversation. I'm not like you. I mean, you basically are like my wife. You can talk to anybody, mm-hmm, and you always have something to say. I'm not like that.
Yeah, I just like to focus on the other person. So whatever's going on with them, that's what I talk about. And then they love to talk about themselves, and it's all set, and I just sit and listen.
But you also have a bazillion stories.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
And so that's helpful that you have all those stories that you can bring up, because you always seem to have the right story for the right situation. I don't.
Okay.
I half the time don't even know what my last name is. So it's good to have that.
Norco.
Yes, Norco. Yeah. So our summer conversations, these are some articles that I pull from the headlines, and you're probably wondering where I get these all the time. Well, because I'm connected. I'm always reading the news. Pastor Gary knows that I like to read. Mm-hmm. So I'm always reading the news, and so I'm looking at things. And so I always seem to find the weirdest things that will be good conversation starters.
Okay.
So the first one that I wanted to bring up, which is interesting, is that there's an Ernest Hemingway competition that's happening in Florida this weekend. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Now, if you don't know who Ernest Hemingway is, he's the one that wrote The Old Man and the Sea and a bunch of other books. Mm-hmm. Some of our English teachers right now are kind of cringing because I don't remember the titles, but sorry, Kate Britton, if you're listening.
Like one of the most famous American authors, right?
And he has some connection to Northern Michigan.
Right.
Apparently there's a cabin or something that he stayed in or owned.
Charlevoix, right downtown Petoskey. He frequented a restaurant there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing. Well, anyways, this Hemingway contest is that they bring together a bunch of old men that look somehow like him in some way. They have the famous white beard and the whole hat and everything look. And so if you look like Ernest Hemingway, then there's a summer activity for you if you want to get down to Florida. You could right now be joining over 140 elderly men that have signed up with white beards as they try to prove to an audience of nearsighted seniors that they look like the real deal.
Wow.
And it's hilarious because this is totally one of those retirement competitions, right?
Okay.
Like, it's, you go down to Florida to golf, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is a competition that apparently they do for a bunch of retirees in that area. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have passed, but I was looking at some of the pictures of some of the previous winners, and they actually do look a lot like the guy. So I don't know, you know, his doppelganger, a lot of those. Another one that's interesting is that just when you thought we lived in America, in Reno, Nevada, they revoked the license plate that was meant to drive away Californians from coming into the state. Okay. Apparently, there's a mass exodus from California to go to Nevada.
And Florida and everywhere else.
Everywhere else is not a democratic state. Yeah. And so what they did is somebody petitioned for, you know, a personalized license plate.
Okay.
And the license plate is GOBK2CA, which is short for Go Back to California. So, and apparently they submitted it and it was all approved. And then the Motor Vehicle Administration of Nevada said, no, this is hate speech. And so
no way.
They revoked it. Yes, they revoked it. And this is on KOLO TV. They reported this. And so the vehicle owner he's appealing for it because he doesn't think it's right that they should, you know, take his right away to have a personalized license plate. But he wants to get it on there. And then the funny part is that apparently in Nevada, if you get one in there, then other people can copy it just by changing a little bit of the wording or whatever. But so it's interesting. They don't want that on the record as being a possibility for anybody to get. So the administrative code basically said they're recalling it because it's defamatory and it's hate speech, according to them. Go back to California. I don't know what the deal is. You know, I was reading an article about that. U-Haul reported from California that they have more trucks being rented to leave the state than they do have people coming into the state.
Okay.
And I was like, really? And people are moving out of there by the droves.
Yeah. Who wants to go get taxed 30%?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Do you know that if you die there, they tax you? If you try to leave the state, they tax you to leave the state.
Really?
There is a leave California tax.
Are you kidding me?
I am not.
Well, you know, my oldest, he just got restationed in San Francisco.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so he's like all excited about it. And then I'm like sitting with him. I'm like, you haven't been watching the news much because, you know, they try not to be biased about a thing, you know, anything. And I said, you know, the taxes there are terrible. And he's like, yeah, I've been hearing about it. And so he's going to stay on base because it's actually cheaper to live on base than it is to go anywhere else.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's like, yeah, I was just talking to somebody that lived there and they can't even afford on their payroll to go live at any apartment in that area. So it's expensive. That's a big one. So if you're looking to get a special license plate, maybe you can try it in America or in Michigan.
Yeah.
See if it works here. And then the last one, this is the best one I found. Library fees are huge for this book. Okay. I guess on February 14th, 1904, someone who was curious about the emerging possibilities of the key force of electricity rented a book called The Elementary Treatise on Electricity. And they rented it from the New Bedford Free Public Library in 1904.
Okay.
And it was just returned this year. So it's a 119-year-old book that's been out.
Okay.
And apparently, it's in West Virginia where it's at. This was actually taken out a year after Thomas Edison introduced the light bulb.
Okay.
So it's kind of got some historical context.
Sure.
But the lady who got the librarian that got the book back sent to her has no name on the box or anything because apparently they don't want to be charged for the late fees.
Late fees, right.
119 years. But they said that, yeah, it was in good condition. It was a great looking book. But she couldn't believe that it had been out that long and nobody returned it. Apparently what happened, the person who did send a little note in there that was anonymous said they found it at a garage sale.
Okay.
Somebody put it in the garage sale. And the reason why she knew it hasn't been returned is there's apparently a stamp that had to be in there.
Right.
Was not in there. So the due date had never been, or the return date had never been stamped.
Okay.
And so you got a 119-year-old book coming in there. You might as well just keep it by now. I mean, 119-year-old book. I mean, like anybody's going to really care about that report now, Yeah. Like we could have light bulbs at some point, and apparently we did, obviously.
I wonder, it's a really good question, should we, do we have books that kind of go out of, print because they're not applicable anymore? I mean, I think so. If they're like predicting that we'll have a light bulb and here we are 119 years later,
we obviously have light bulbs.
Yeah. So do we just make more room on the shelf by getting rid of that one, or what do we do?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe you should go into a museum or something, but they're going to put it back on the shelf.
I do want to bring up this, though. Yeah. This is an interesting fact you can add to that story.
Okay.
That there is a light bulb in a firehouse, and I can't remember exactly the location, but it's over 100 years old. Yep. The light bulb is still it's still flickering. It's still working. It's super dim, but it is still going at over 100 years old.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and they actually... a number of years ago, the power went out and the bulb almost quit working.
Really?
Yeah. But so that now it has its own backup generator to keep power going to this one light bulb. Yeah.
That is so weird. Yeah. I've heard that story, and the firehouse is like really particular. And actually, I think they have a webcam on it. Like you can look at it on the internet and look at it. Yeah.
A light bulb.
Yeah. Well, if you got nothing else to do during the night and you're just trying to find a way to get
popular in England, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
The BBC, they love shows like that.
In England, definitely with all the sports that they brought up, since the last time. It's funny because
have you ever watched the BBC?
Yeah,
They got like 16 different actors for the entire.
Yeah.
That's it. If you ever watch a BBC, it's going to be one of those 16 actors will be the lead role.
I know. BBC is great. I like to watch a lot of their old comedy from the 70s and early 80s.
Okay.
Because they had no qualms whatsoever about talking about Nazis and they make fun of them and they make fun of that whole thing.
Sure.
So I watch it and I'm like, it's hilarious. Some of the stuff they do.
Yep.
It makes some of our TV look kind of calm and tame, but it
kind of messes with you when you watch a BBC show or a movie because you're like, hey, wasn't that guy in the last 3 different shows that I just watched?
Right.
What character am I looking at here? It's the same person
guy
in all the lead roles in all of these different movies and shows.
How long was it?
Confusing.
Speaking about BBC, how long was it before you actually heard Mr. Bean's voice?
A number of years, right?
Yeah.
He would make sounds, but
he never make sounds and never do anything. I watched an actual interview with him, and I'm like, that voice does not fit.
Right.
What I thought he was going to sound like.
Roland Atchison or something is his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. The first one I ever saw is it was a little short clip, and he was late for work.
Okay.
And so he's getting dressed in the car while he's on his way to work.
Yeah.
And I almost wet myself. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And he's brushing his teeth and he sticks his head out the window and then hits the windshield wiper stuff. And it was just great. And then he spits and then the spit goes right in somebody that was bent over next to the road with a plumber's crack. And it just
goes right in there.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. That guy is so funny.
Yeah.
There's a video that we watched. I think it was on Netflix or something where it's a movie of his where he's a spy.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, and I was like watching it and I'm thinking, this is going to be just dumb. And I was laughing so hard by the end of it. It's just so funny. He's just so good. Rat Race, he's in Rat Race too, the new one.
Yeah.
And that's really funny. And you hear his voice in there.
Okay.
He is a narcoleptic.
It's just good slapstick humor. And
Well, a lot of humor nowadays is just so vulgar.
Yeah, vulgar and
Always has some innuendo there.
Yeah.
And it's nice once in a while. I think that's one thing with BBC is that a lot of times their humor is obvious and slapstick and, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you talk about getting back to this idea of library books. The library said that the last time they had a book that late was just a few years ago and it was only 15 years old. So this is the oldest book in America returned.
Okay.
Well, something to think about there. Yeah. So if you ever want to get this out, it is called maybe you can find it in your local library. It is, I'm looking up for the name here. It's the treaty. It's an elementary treatise on electricity. And this book was produced just before Edison came out with the light bulb.
Okay.
And it was basically touting the fact that electricity could change our future, which we all have seen it happen. So that's just a little something to, sit around the barbecue with. And if you're on Pastor Gary's boat and you're having pizza, you can say, hey, did you hear this story about blah, 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 blah? That's what we do here. That's what More Podcasts is here on this planet to do.
Yeah, we're here to equip you for good boating conversation.
We want to give you spiritual, but we also want to give you stuff to talk about besides that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take an identity break. We'll be right back.
Get some more, get some more, get some more, yeah. Get some more, get some more, get some more, yeah. Get some more, get some more, get some more, yeah. More coming at ya, more coming at ya.
The Damn Side Inn is an historic restaurant located in Pellston, Michigan. Nestled next to the North's most scenic majesty, it offers a picturesque setting and a charming ambiance. The restaurant serves a delicious array of old country dining with its rustic charm and scenic surroundings, making the Damn Side Inn at 6705 Woodland Road, Pellston, your next stop to make memories as a family for generations to come. The Damn Side Inn.
That's our new sponsor.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Damn Side Inn. I got to talk to them and they sent us some swag to give away, some t-shirts and sweatshirts.
Nice.
The only problem is that I was looking through it because every now and then I like to look to see if they have any fat man sizes.
Okay.
They're not. They're all like, large, mediums. So We'll give them away, and you can give them to your kids or something. Okay. Well, let's get ready for our Rapture Ready news.
Get Rapture Ready with your favorite host today, Pastor Gary and Pastor Alex Norton, as they come to you with information that you need to make it through the times coming ahead and more.
Yeah, you've been listening to the jazz music here. Yeah, Rapture Ready news. Well, we got an interesting story that just popped up on the media. This just blows my ever-loving mind. When I listen to this heading, I'm sure you're going to get outraged, so try to calm yourself down, okay. Pastor Gary.
Right now.
The Virginia Democrat plans a bill to charge parents who do not affirm their child's gender identity. This Gateway pundit, Margaret Flavin, is trying to push through a bill to say that it's illegal for your parents to not call your child a boy when they're a girl, or not to identify them as whatever they think they are. Radical progressive Virginia Democrat delegate Elizabeth Guzman announced plans to introduce a bill in Virginia legislators where parents could face a felony or a misdemeanor charge if they do not affirm their child's sexual orientation and or gender identity. According to her website, Elizabeth was inspired by Bernie Sanders' call for everyday people to run for office, a decision that was cemented when Hillary Clinton lost and Elizabeth's 9-year-old son said that the family had to return to Peru because Donald Trump doesn't like people who speak Spanish. Wow.
Okay.
Can you really? What else are we going to try to do here? Parents now can be taken to jail or, get a felony or a misdemeanor crime that, if we don't identify, or we don't tell our kids they identify as whatever they identify as. What is going on?
Yeah, per day. That can change per day.
Yeah.
Per hour. Yep. We're seeing the erosion of the family.
Yes.
At an epic, rate. And I'll just say that, we're very proud of the families that we have here at Harbor Light, and the fact that we're going to, stand alongside parents, even if their children are struggling, which we've had parents that have struggled with their children, and we're just going to continue to stand with them. And, God knows what he's doing when he created us and gave us our gender.
I think that it's interesting that, one of the things that Jesus talked about is that when we start following him, or the kingdom becomes evident in the world, which it did when he came on the scene, that he was going to cause division. There was going to be division in morality, ethics, worldviews, all those things. And it's really sad to see that coming about in our lifetime, where we have families that are going to have to deal with this head on, where we have families that are going to have to say, listen, my kid is a boy. He was born a boy, genetically he's a boy. I'm not going to call him a girl just because somebody in the school influenced him to think that way.
Right.
Those kind of things are going to be issues that we're going to have to face. I tell my wife all the time, I'm so glad that my kids are the age they are right now. But I feel so bad for them that they're going to have to defend themselves in these situations because, our culture is not a jail culture anymore. It's not following after any ideas of the gospel. It just seems like we've kind of thrown those all out of the country, and now we're just doing whatever. And you have people that make well-meaning arguments, right? I mean, if you listen to the last part of that, she's basically trying to strum on the heartstrings of people, saying, well, Trump, in this case, didn't want people that spoke Spanish to live in the country, which is not true at all.
Correct.
But, those are the kind of arguments they're bringing up, like these things like, do you want your child to live in a world where they don't feel loved or, that is not the point at all. I mean, we're talking about basic truth that is evident to science. Science is not refuting this at all. You don't see any scientist stepping up the plate saying, you know what, she's got a point. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous this is going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely be a battle for us as believers to make those stands. And unfortunately, like you've mentioned before from the podium, that we're going to have to be the stopgap. We're going to have to say things, and sometimes we're not going to be popular.
Right.
And I think it's been proven out because, somebody was showing me on Facebook, people talk about our church like we're too black and white. We don't, we don't love people that are those kind of viewpoints and all this other stuff. And I think this just ridiculous.
You remember yesterday at the staff meeting, I made a point of saying, listen, we care about people.
Yeah.
We care about people.
Yeah.
We're not going to condone, things that don't line up with God's word.
Right.
We do care about people.
Yeah.
And we care about people who are struggling with this, this new little phenomenon that's going on.
Yeah.
We still care about them.
Yeah.
We care about them and respect them enough to stay with, the gender that God chose for them.
That's right. And you want to talk about people saying that, we're science deniers. I mean, this is literally denying science.
Mm-hmm.
There's no proof in anything else.
Right.
But they're going to keep, hitting this home over and over again until somebody, says, oh, okay, maybe there is something here to talk about.
So, people that are struggling with this particular area, of course, we have medications and drugs now to be able to block puberty or to reverse or to introduce the hormones that would go with the other gender. And you might be able to see some type of a change inside the human that goes through this. But on the cellular level, there's still male and female cells at every level of your body, and you can't change those.
Yeah. What was it last year? Miss Universe was not actually a Miss Universe. It was a man that won.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the lady who owned, or the man who owns the rights to the universe competition, Miss Universe competition, is a man.
Okay.
And so she apparently is rich enough to own it. Mm-hmm. And so apparently somehow, it's a mystery to the rest of us how a man won the competition, but a man won the competition who opposes a woman. And her whole platform is that we need to show equality to everybody. But it's that kind of stuff that's driving me nuts. You see that happening all over the place. Mm-hmm. Job experiences. I know that there's a business in town here that has a couple that are transgender or changing, and somebody that works there, so they can't ever bring it up or talk about it. They can't acknowledge the fact that there's obviously a difference that's happening with this person, and it's a man changing into a woman, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me. We have to be quiet. We can't say anything because we want to hurt their feelings or seem like we don't want to care about people. But the truth is, you have to go through a lot to get to that point. And psychologists are proving over and over again that's not a good thing.
Right.
Because people that transition don't find what they're looking for. They don't find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, thinking that, okay, now that I've done this, everything's better. There's a reason why they're still fighting for their rights, because they realize that nobody really agrees with it. And even though you do get to that point, people don't see it as a plus. They see it as a negative, and it's not a good thing. I don't know. I'm just, sometimes I just want to scream and just say, where am I living at right now? What is going on? I mean, with all the other things that we could be dealing with, like food shortages, all these different things that we're doing, oil prices. I mean, come on, forget about all this stuff. Let's make the gas pump go to a little bit lower. Did you see the prices this week?
I did not.
It jumped up to $3.69 again.
Okay.
And do you notice that overnight it will change down, and then all of a sudden through the middle of the day it hikes another 10 cents again?
I didn't know.
It's ridiculous. Anyways, well, we're going to take an ID break. We'll be right back.
Hey, don't worry. More podcasts will be back in just a second.
Well, we are here at our Harbor Light Bible Trivia, and this is the big day that we've all been waiting for.
The end of the month drawing.
End of the month drawing.
The swag giveaway.
And this time, you have a choice.
Okay.
You can get either the podcast speaker box that we have, or you can get a Toby Mac CD that I picked up at Life Fest.
I remember that.
With a picture framed with a special photo of Toby Mac that you can't get anywhere else.
Okay.
It was taken by a pro, which happens to be my son. And I've got this, and you will never find this photo anywhere else because it's only, it was only taken at Life Fest. Okay. So those are the two prizes you got. But last week we had people bringing in the question with them saying the word.
Yes.
And I'm trying to get this up here real quick. Do
you remember what it was?
Ifafa.
Ifafatha.
Ifafatha. And so I'm trying to find where I found it on here. I had somebody send me the link on this. Well, I can't get it. My phone, listen, I had people send it in. And then, how Joe over here is like, it's so easy. Just do a voice memo and then you just pick it up and put it in your phone. My phone, I couldn't get it to transfer over to a file so that I could just play it.
Oh, right.
And so it would play it in that text, but then it wouldn't play it up.
Okay.
But we had everybody answered it and pronounced it pretty well.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It was actually really well.
Okay.
I don't know if they had help from Google or what, but Ifafatha.
Ifafatha.
Yeah.
And
what does that mean?
It means be open.
Okay.
And what was kind of crazy is on Sunday morning, I was able to pull that one off, but I messed up my two other Greek words.
Oh, yeah.
In the second service, I just totally botched them.
They're tongue twisters.
They were. Yeah. Therapeo was one.
Therapeo
was the one. And then the other one was Eaomai.
Okay.
Eaomai. That's hard to say.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I'll tell you that, Pastor Gary and I, when we study for a sermon, we always do obviously look at the original language, trying to understand the meaning and the depth, but it's not easy. And this word that we used is actually an Aramaic word, which Jesus was using because it was the slang of the day. It was the language that everybody used around Galilee. So it's a little out of context that Mark would use an Aramaic word instead of a Greek word, but
I had a little pastoral moment up there. So the context is that Jesus grabs the guy, and he looks up into heaven, and then it says with a deep sigh, and the actual other word is a deep groan.
Yeah.
And then you go to Romans chapter 8:26 that says, when we groan these words in tongues.
Yeah.
So I made the little kind of slight little joke in there that Jesus was speaking in tongues when he did the
He was like, oh my gosh, really? I tend to think that Jesus sometimes had some fun.
He did.
Yeah. And then the groan was probably like, oh, here we go. But Jesus, we see through the whole story that's there in Mark chapter 7 that, Jesus was actually doing this. He was making a statement. But the truth is, sometimes that could be a little taxing. I mean, if you're walking around and every 5 seconds somebody's like, can you heal me? Can you heal me?
Yeah, can you imagine? I can't imagine.
I can't either. I mean, I would be like, Bruce Almighty. I would get on the computer and say, everybody's healed right now. Boom, click. But Jesus, he had a purpose in a way that he was doing things.
But most people got the answer correct.
Got the answer correct. I'm just really happy that everybody tried it, and I apologize that I can't play them on the air because
shucks.
You're talking to somebody that's not technologically savvy. I don't even really know how half the time I figure out what I figure out.
Okay.
It just happens. And so anyways, I apologize, but you guys did a really good job. I'm so thankful that you would do that. And, maybe at some point when we start doing live podcasts, because we have the ability to do that. We can do live podcasts. We don't have to do recording. Maybe we'll get better at that. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We're getting there.
A little bit at a time.
Yep.
I mean, we started out with one microphone, right?
Did we?
Something like that. Well, because we just started out in the prayer room.
Right.
And then from that one day that we just said, okay, that's a podcast.
Oh, I remember that. You tricked me. I remember that.
I'm like, Pastor Gary, just start talking. We'll just go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually said we're going to test the mic.
Yeah. And then
just start talking. and then after 15 or 50 minutes, you're like, okay, that's a take.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. I'm like, what? I thought we were
happened?
practicing. I thought we were just checking the microphone. You're like, no, that's a show.
That's a show. We just did it. That's a show. It's like the Seinfeld. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about nothing, but that's a show. There we go. All right, so that was the question. What was that word? How do you pronounce it? And everybody did it. And so we have the hat, the golden hat.
Okay, so this is at the end of the month drawing for the swag.
Yes.
Okay. And we're really, really rooting. I got one person in mind that I hope wins.
Who is it?
It's Mary.
Mary, okay.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that Mary will win.
We'll see what it is.
Here we go. We've got the paper in front of me. Mary
wins.
No joke. That's for real.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mary, you win.
Mary,
you're a winner.
You have a choice now. This big prize, you can either get the podcast speaker or you can get the Toby Mac CD.
I will. So I had Wednesday Night Live meal a couple weeks ago with Mary at the table, and I'm pretty sure she's going to go for the speaker.
You think she's going to go the speaker?
That she said, you know what? I went to the beach and I had no music because I had no speaker.
Oh, well.
Anyways, this is great. Mary,
that's awesome.
Right there.
Yeah. Well, this is a beach-friendly speaker.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like totally cool.
Congratulations, Mary.
Yeah, congratulations on that. You did well. Thank you for sending all your responses into our podcast to get that. And also, just so you know, we have new swag coming. We have the Jesus Hugs You bracelets that are coming.
Okay.
And it's a Jesus that wraps his arms around your wrist, and you can wear them around and remind yourself that you're not alone.
Yesterday, I was hanging out with this person that I spend time with often, and they had a T-shirt on that said, God's children are not for sale. And it was a human trafficking shirt.
Oh, that's
I'm like,
good.
oh my gosh, we got to get some of those.
We get some of those, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have not printed our podcast T-shirts yet, but we're working on that. We're just waiting for Pastor Matt to get some free time.
Okay.
The guy seems to always be gone, and we got to get him to
Mr. World Traveler.
Yeah, we got to get him to talk to whoever he talks to. Omar in New York that can print them up, in his basement or something.
I've got some swag coming for the facilities team.
Okay.
Yep. Got some giant Harbor Light T-shirts for them. And then I have my Revolution shirts. We got a special order request. So we got a bunch of those coming.
I remember we had a conversation at one point. We're getting Harbor Light shirts for staff. Is that still happening?
Yeah. I got some T-shirts coming for you.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
Yep.
I like a good T-shirt with a name on it.
Right.
Yeah. You know how I am. I mean, I got Harbor Light shirts and all this other stuff.
I would think they'd be here by next week, so should be good.
It depends. It's funny because you pay for Prime and Amazon.
Yeah.
My wife is learning this for the coffee connection.
Right.
And it says 2-day shipping. It doesn't mean anything anymore. No, you're paying for, I don't even know what you're paying for.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't come in 2 days. So you're just kind of just giving the money for Prime. That's beside the point. Sorry. A little sidetrack, getting a little upset about that, anyways. So we have a question for this week in Mark chapter 7. Pastor Gary, what is the question
for the week? This week's
question, yes.
It will not be from Mark 7, but I do have a question in my mind.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so what is it that dogs eat that fall from the table?
Oh,
there we go.
That is a good one.
And I would like the actual item as well as the reference, or what is it? What does that represent? That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, what is the item and what does it represent?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have the answer to that, you can send it to harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase, harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, and let us know if you have the answer to that. And again, we want to say congratulations, Mary.
Mary, good job.
You won. You finally did it.
You held out, but don't stop listening just because you got the swag.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think she would. She said she likes the show a lot. So
yeah,
she says she thinks that you and I are kind of funny, which I've never been accused of that before.
I'm told I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah, so. I am too. My jokes kind of land flat. I tried that the other day. I was sitting around with a bunch of guys and I had this joke that I've been working on all week because I heard it somewhere. I put it out there and everybody just kind of stares at me like, yeah, that's funny.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So I quit doing that. I quit giving jokes. Anyways, we're going to take an ID break. We'll be right back.
The More Podcast wants you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny, and make an eternal difference. You're listening to More Podcast.
Well, we're going to get ready to get into our Bible talk. And of course, as we've been talking up to this point, we've been in a series on Sunday called On Jesus Like Jesus. And last weekend, Pastor Gary talked about spit and wet willies.
Yes, spitballs and wet willies.
Spitballs and wet willies. Out of Mark chapter 7, verse 31 through 37. And it's an interesting story, an interesting conversation that Jesus has with a person who finds himself in a healing situation, needed some help. Pastor Gary, could you give us an introduction to this text?
Yeah, this particular text is probably one of the more unique miracles that we see Jesus perform or have recorded for us in the Gospels, and which this a man who was deaf and also would be considered mute, even though he could communicate a little bit with his words. Most people couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so he comes to Jesus, or actually his friends bring him to Jesus, and Jesus takes him aside and then puts his fingers in his ears and then spits on his tongue and then looks up into heaven and prays, says, "Be open." And the man is able then to be able to hear and to speak perfectly. The scripture literally says perfectly. And so we made reference or made note of the fact that his hearing was healed, his speech was healed, and that his brain capability of being able to enunciate the words perfectly all took place at that moment.
That is so, the whole scene playing out is so funny.
Yeah. In the second service, we had a lot of fun with it because I had a volunteer jump up and they helped me with the first couple of parts. And then I went and read the scripture part where he sticks the finger in the ear and spits on the tongue. And the guy's eyes got like this big. That we were going to demonstrate that.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
right.
You might want to sit down at this point.
Yeah. What you can do what now? Yeah. It was funny because there's a video I saw on one of the Instagram, and there's a guy that had those implants put in for hearing.
Yeah.
And he had basically just heard for the first time, and his wife was sitting next to him, and she was all excited, ecstatic, and she's just screaming, hollering. And the guy's, the doctor's like, "Can you hear? Are you hearing well?" And he's like, "Yeah, but there's this really awful noise in my ears right now." And he's like, "Turn it off. I don't want them on anymore. Take them off." And the woman's like, "Honey, you're healed," and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, as I'm reading that text, I'm thinking, this guy's like, I'm hearing my wife for the first time. What am I going to do?
Oh no.
Yeah, my wife's going to kill me for saying that.
Yes.
Anyways, so it's interesting. And as we get to verse 31, we've been noticing a lot of things that Jesus has been doing around Galilee, a lot of places that he's been doing some good work. Why do you think, I know this is kind of off script a little bit, but why do you think Jesus was so intent on this one area? It just seems to be traveling around the lake.
Yeah, it's on the north, kind of the northeast side of the Galilee.
Yeah.
And it says that Jesus leaves and goes through, Tyre and then down through Sidon. And so he's made this big 100-mile loop.
Yeah.
Up to the north and over to the east. And I kind of wonder about it because this weekend's talk is going to take place in that same region.
Yeah.
So yes, Jesus spent a lot of time there, and it was a Gentile area.
Yeah.
And the people were pretty receptive to the work of Jesus. And so I think even though Jesus was called to minister to Israel first, it didn't mean he didn't minister outside of that as well. And you kind of wonder about that. Do you have insider information?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I think one of my arguments for that is that, Jesus said he was come to open the eyes of Israel. That was a prophetic word for him. I think that there's also the same thing there where he's, like we talked about the Sunday that I preached, showing the compromises that were happening within the nation as well.
Yeah.
And they had sort of mingled in with all these other places. And so, even though we have a large population of Gentiles that are obviously moving in the area, it's still Jewish territory.
Yeah.
And yet we have all this stuff happening. So I think that, for me personally, I look at it as two-sided. Like he obviously was fulfilling his prophecy, but also was using it as a ministry opportunity to show, hey, you guys are off, you're off the reservation. This is not good what's happening here.
Yeah.
Because you've been over to Israel and you can see all the synagogues that are around that area that have popped up that they would put there. And one of the texts of Pharisees, Josephus brings this out. One of the Pharisees said they don't like to go there because there's so much sin and debauchery happening there.
Okay.
And so the Pharisees would hardly ever go in that area.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to be around all that junk. And so whoever served in the synagogues, it's kind of like being in the ghetto in a sense spiritually.
Okay.
And they didn't want to be around there. So
this would be modern day Lebanon is kind of what we're talking about.
And I'm thinking that a lot of that has to do with, just Jesus saying, hey, you know what, you're going to hear the message because when I die on the cross, you're going to know obviously what's going on. But, getting out there. But it is just amazing to me how you look at the area that Jesus ministered in, it is not that big. It's like going around Little Traverse Bay and hitting all the towns or the little locations around Little Traverse Bay.
Yeah.
And along that area, you have all these little synagogues where people are trying to still operate as Jews. But yeah, it was just it was a trek.
I know you weren't able to be there, but I made a connection from when your last message, the man who gets set free from 1,000 demons, he's told to then go tell everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Stay home and tell everybody. And then here we are about 30 to 60 days later.
Yeah.
Jesus has now come to this area. Everyone is primed and ready to receive the healing that they need. It's in the same exact location.
Yeah.
And so I was able to help connect those two together.
That's good.
And what was really fun is I didn't plan that on purpose. Holy Spirit put the series together in the order in which it went, and that was the appropriate miracle right after your miracle.
Isn't that so good how he does that?
He's wonderful. That's the second time in this series that has happened.
Yeah, and it happened to you another series too, where it just kind of dovetailed, and you're like, I didn't even realize this was happening until I started, studying it. Yeah,
right.
Well, because there's a common thread, there's a common line that we see in Scripture that sometimes we don't always catch, but Holy Spirit does it on purpose because obviously there's a big picture that needs to be facilitated and brought out. And I think I'm glad that you're really sensitive when Holy Spirit does that. But, it's a good example of this is when Jesus is ministering in this area, doing what he's doing. The theme obviously was healing and demon possession.
Yeah.
It seems to be the big thing there.
Yeah.
But, that stuff didn't happen just overnight. It was because there was a lot of things that were going on in those communities and places. And I think it really speaks to our now situation.
Yeah.
Is that if we allow those things to happen in our lives as well, we're going to be in the same boat.
I'll tell you, as my pastor friend, get ready.
Yeah.
With all the demonic activity that we have allowed in this country via TV, movies, books, entertainment, all that kind of stuff, get ready. There's going to be a lot more demonic attack.
Yeah.
And we as a church better be ready to do some spiritual warfare.
Well, and you're so right, because look at how the compromise is affecting our nation now, right? I mean, I can remember in my lifetime where, churches were respected, pastors were respected. The idea of being a Christian was respected. If you told somebody you were a Christian, you were held to a higher standard. Today, people don't look at us any different than, Joe Schmo down the street. It's like they've seen the compromise and hypocrisy so badly executed within our society that they just think, well, whatever, that's just your flavor of the month kind of thing, whatever it is. But we're not really held to a higher standard anymore.
Yeah.
And so people can just do whatever. I mean, we got pastors that are saying hypocritical things from the pulpit, blasphemous things from the pulpit. And it's just unreal what is happening here. And a lot of it has to do with a compromise that's not only affected the nation of non-believers, but the believers themselves, where we've opened the door and said, hey, it's not so bad. And it seems to be a perfect weapon of the devil, right? To kind of move into our lives with stuff that seems so, it's not a big deal, right? But I don't know. It's funny. My dad, he was, a pastor for 35 years, and he always used to preach every now and then about the evil of TV and how it's affected the family, and how once TV started coming into the home, a lot of things started changing as far as the structure of the home. And I'm like, I kind of like, well, whatever, MTV is not that bad, right? And then I'm like, wow, there's a lot. Now that my eyes are, as an older person, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
It is. And I know you're noticing that with your grandkids, just the cartoons that seem to be so innocent. You're like, wait a minute, that's not innocent at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's
there's a whole agenda behind every cartoon.
Oh my gosh. The other day, my son was showing me this cartoon, just trying to bring it up to my attention. He's like, hey, watch this. And I'm sitting there watching it. And basically, the assumption is that these two girls they like each other.
Okay.
And it's a kids cartoon, like it's for little kids in grade school. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And they don't, they don't ever show any physical connection with each other, but the conversations are, they like each other. And I'm thinking there's some family out there that's putting their kids in front of that, saying, hey, you know what? Let's let Bobby watch this show and let's see what happens. So Pastor Gary, so what did you learn about this man that people brought to Jesus in the text that you think is interesting?
Yeah. So I really felt like it was really interesting that he could still speak a little bit. Okay. And that was a big deal. I felt like also some of the things that kind of stood out to me were some of the reasons that Jesus did what he did in this particular time, sticking his fingers in his ears. So what was happening was people who were, born deaf and or were mute, they were considered second-class citizens. They were also considered to be mentally challenged, even though they could be highly intelligent people. You couldn't communicate with them, and so people just disregarded them.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus comes and he actually puts his fingers in his ear, he's put his finger on the problem. Not, he didn't put it on his head or his brain. He put it on his ear to touch. This is the point that needs healing.
Yeah.
And you still have value, right? And then, of course, touching the tongue as well was doing the same thing.
That's a good insight.
I really, really felt like that was important because he's taken the man to the side. Jesus took the man away from the crowd, and he's given him that personal face-to-face connection with Jesus. Jesus didn't heal him as a part of a prayer line.
Right.
He didn't do it in a mass movement. He did it one-on-one. So he's adding value back to this man that had been taken away from him by society, and he's also identifying where the real problem was, and then he looks up into heaven, but he does use the saliva because this man was a Gentile. The Gentiles at that time felt like saliva had some healing properties. So he's saying, look, here, this is going to be healing.
Yeah.
This is the saliva. But he looks up to heaven and he's saying, this is where the real healing comes from.
Right.
And he was giving this man what we call a touch point, a place he can anchor his faith to believe for what's going to happen next.
That's good.
And so those are some of the things that were most interesting as I studied about this guy.
I think was interesting, like you just pointed out, the guy got pulled aside. Do you think sometimes that Jesus would do that because he did it in a couple other occasions where he'd kick people out of the room or he'd do something like that? Do you think that the connection had to be that way because maybe the faith of the people surrounding may have been, lackluster, like, oh, really, you're going to do something like this for this guy?
Yeah, I think environments are super important.
Yeah.
And I think environments take place in a crowd, but there's an environment that takes place inside of your heart as well, or inside of your family, or the people that you're in close relationship with. You want to create an environment that is receptive, anticipating, and expecting a miracle to take place. And if there are people who are just kind of viewing it for entertainment and or scoffing or laughing about it, they actually can shut down.
Yeah.
That can have an impact on the efficiency or the level of healing that can take place. That reverts back to Mark chapter 6 when Jesus went to his hometown, and he can only heal a few people because of their unbelief or their disbelief. Yeah,
and that's a good point you brought up there. I remember seeing that many times in the Gospels where Jesus is like that, these people are not believing, I can't really do anything here.
Right.
I think that's it's interesting because you think about it in our modern day context when we pray for people, and you've noticed this, and I've noticed this when people come up for prayer. One of the things you ask them is, do you believe that God can do this? You know, you're asking them where they're at in their faith journey. What do they see? Or if they're coming up, they're like, I don't know what's going to happen.
This has happened to me, and I'm sure it happens to you. Someone will come up and I'm like, all right, I want to pray for you. What are we praying about? And they're like, well, I need healing. I'm like, all right, great. Tell me where, tell me why, tell me how, right? Let's put some words to this. Okay. I need a healing here because of this. All right. Now let's pray specifically for that one particular thing. And now you've put words to it, and your faith has, your words have activated power connected to faith.
Yeah. I think people don't always understand that. And a lot of times when you pray for people, they just send up these ambiguous prayers for things, and they wonder why things will happen. And I think it's like a conversation that you and I have in a regular situation is that, I can't have an ambiguous conversation with you that doesn't really give you any detail, because how do you respond? How do you deal with it? And it's not like God does not know, but I think it's the whole mechanism, how God set it up for a purpose.
It's a fun conversation.
Yeah.
We talked about those two Greek words that are connected to Jesus' healing power. One of them is the kind where they pray there has to be faith that activates it. Okay, that was the therapeo word, or therapy. Okay, so Jesus says, stretch out your hand, get up and walk. So just kind of a fun conversation between two pastors. When is the man healed who gets up and walks?
Yeah.
Is he healed before he gets up and walks, or as he gets up and walks?
That's good. Yeah, good conversation.
It's a great conversation, right? Because I think Jesus says you're healed, and the man continues to lay there.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So the power is still in God's hands, but it's activated when I take the step of faith to stand up, or stretch out my withered hand, or make a confession that my diabetes is gone.
Right. Yeah. When you move in that direction.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think, we grew up in a time apparently where, that stuff was kind of maybe stretched and meandered a little bit, made, manipulated a little bit. So it's a little grandiose, but
name it, claim it.
Name it, claim it. Yeah. And I think we got to get back to the fact that, there's a reason for why that even started to begin with, even though it kind of got crazy. Yep. But you should be speaking those words in faith, because our words obviously are sort of the voice of our heart, our spirit man speaking. It's what out of our heart, our mouth speaks. And so we've got to definitely get grounded in this idea. And I think when people come to him to get healed, they really believe that this guy's going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's true for us today. I mean, when you come for prayer on Sunday, or you come to get healing or whatever, you want to come up there ready to do it. This is going to happen. This is not just going to be a possibility.
Yeah.
And it's a really crucial part of it. And I think that's what we see happening here over and over again with Jesus in this situation.
It was really fun. I mean, these are, a few short verses, but you can grab a lot of stuff out of it.
So what are the three things that Jesus did to this man? You mentioned that he did something with his fingers.
Yep. Number one, he pulls him aside. Number two, he touches him on the areas that need healing. Number three, he points his vision towards heaven.
Yeah.
And number four, he heals the man.
Yeah.
Right. So those are four incredible things that
I was only thinking three, but you got four there. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? What was the significance of each of those things? You just mentioned a little bit about it, but you said that putting the finger on his ears was a very specific thing.
Right.
Because it was pointing to the problem.
Number one, taking him apart, showing he has value. He gets God's attention, and creating the environment for the miracle to take place.
Yeah.
Number two, touching the actual points that need the healing.
Yeah.
Number three, looking up to heaven as the source of the healing. And number four, telling the man, now I don't want you to tell anybody about this.
Yeah, don't.
Which is the humor of the thing.
Yeah.
That was, to me, the most funny part of the entire message, right? It wasn't funny that he spit it on his tongue. I mean, it's kind of funny, but that's not the real humor. The real humor is, you came here and you couldn't speak.
Right.
Now you can speak. And now I'm telling you, please don't speak.
Yeah.
That's the humor.
It seems like whenever he'd say that to somebody, they would do the opposite, right?
Absolutely. And I think Jesus kind of knew that was going to happen, obviously.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an insider's joke with Jesus, like, I'm telling you not to do this, but you're going to go and do it anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting with this guy. It's kind of hard to keep those kind of things quiet anyways, when something's happened. But I think what's interesting with Jesus, a lot of times when he heals somebody, he'd always tell them to go get verification as well, to prove that, this was something legit that actually happened.
For the people of Israel, there was a whole protocol of things they had to do. They had to go to the priest, who was operating as the doctor, and get checked and make make sure that the healing was actually true,
legit,
and
yeah,
had taken place, and then to get the stamp of approval that you can engage with society.
Yeah, especially for things like leprosy and those kind of things as well.
Right.
So the man, he gets healed and he heads off and starts telling people about it. Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting about that whole thing is that that seems to be the byproduct when God gets involved. I think I've never heard of anybody that's been healed or has gone through something like that and keep their mouth shut about it. But we've seen some amazing healings here. I think you mentioned that somebody was healed here a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they did was they were telling their coworkers about what had happened, and it was an interesting thing to see happen there. But,
I think it's important for us. I really had fun then going to the 6 places in the book of Mark where he says, listen, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Right. And when you jump over to Luke chapter 9, verse 18, we get the answer of why Jesus would tell people, please don't tell anyone what just happened. And it's because we don't want to get stuck with Jesus just being the healer,
right,
and not our Savior. And a lot of people would be, hey, this guy gives free meals, or this guy heals, or whatever it is. But then they don't go that extra step to say, hey, this person is the Savior of my soul.
Yeah.
And we need that as well. And so I think many times these people are going to be excited talking about what Jesus did for them, and hey, he can do this for you, but they hadn't had that salvation experience yet.
So, I mean, this is kind of off script again. So would you say that a lot of times when Jesus was healing, it was for the sole purpose of bringing the redemption story a little bit further? Mm-hmm. Or do you think that Jesus did it because he's mentioned many times he was filled with compassion to heal? Yeah. Do you think that it was mainly for redemption then?
I do feel like he has compassion on people. He wants to take care of your hurts and the things that have happened in your life for sure, right? But that's just the stepping stone towards what he really wants to do, which is to set you free from the bondages of sin.
Yeah.
And we see where Jesus actually says, listen, I'm going to hand out these meals, and I know you're going to come back tomorrow hungry again, right?
Yeah.
This is more than just the meal. This is more than just the healing. This is about you being set free from sin. Yeah,
that's because when you think about it, when we mentioned that passage of scripture is in Matthew where he says, "By your stripes you're healed." Mm-hmm. To me, it's obviously connected to the cross. It's obviously connected to the redemption story. But to me, sometimes it feels like when we talk about healing, it's people will come because they don't want to deal with obviously the crisis of the problem, so they want to get healed, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what's the end result of that healing? What is the end result of what we're moving forward now? You've been healed. What do you do with it?
Yeah,
it almost seems like there's a purpose.
There's
for it.
Real practical applications to the meaning behind this. Mm-hmm. When we do missions work, right? Yeah. We're handing out cold cups of water to people who are thirsty. We're handing out healing to people that need medicine. We're stacking firewood for people that need heat and source in the wintertime, right? But that isn't the end,
right?
Right? We want you to know God more deeply.
Yeah.
Right. That's the reason I'm doing this, is to show you God's love. Now, let me tell you about God's love.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when it comes to missions work, I've run into a lot of people who don't want to stack the firewood or hand out the medicine, because for them, only what matters is salvation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's both. The gospel is 2 parts: healing for your body and healing for your soul.
Yeah.
You need both parts, right?
Yeah.
Don't do one without the other. And so that's important. So we do find real application to this principle that Jesus is putting in place here.
And I think this was interesting with our program that we do for missions. Pastor Amy calls it "Do Love."
Yes.
Which I think it's a very profound statement. Mm-hmm. It's not only that you love with compassion, but we're also that love is incorporating the fact of we want to share the love of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so when we go on these missions trip, it's not just like you just said, one-sided. Mm-hmm. Do love means we show the full spectrum of God's love, which is maybe healing and also bringing, compassion and help. And I think that's an important thing to think about, especially I just watched some of the pictures from Alaska. You see a lot of that. They were stacking wood, doing things for people that couldn't get it done before the winter hit.
Yeah. Pastor Amy said they worked super hard on this particular trip with very practical things, firewood and all that kind of stuff. You're helping out tremendously. Hopefully that gives us then the opportunity for an open door to be able to share about the love of Christ.
Right.
And we got to step through that. One of the questions that I put on the bottom of the outline this particular week is why is it our tendency as humans to get stuck on Jesus as the healer and not the Savior?
Well, that's good.
Your thoughts on that?
Is Jesus the healer? Well, because I think that's something that we personally want to have, relief of. Or if you're going through a personal issue, you want to get that taken care of. And I think that's why sometimes that's our focus, right? Because it's the immediate issue, the immediate problem at hand.
Yep.
But I think that sometimes we forget the fact that, okay, so if I'm coming to Christ to do this, to get the healing, to be made whole again, what is my reaction? What is my response to that, right?
Yes.
And I think that's sometimes where we kind of miss the boat, right?
Yeah.
Our response is, thank you, Jesus. I'm just going to go back to my old life and do what I've been doing before now that I feel better. And it's really, there's nothing very deep that happened in that situation. And I think you brought that up with some of the other passages you referenced with, people come to Jesus for food, come to Jesus for healing, and then they would go away and they're like, hey, thanks a lot. When Jesus healed the leper, right? Only one of them came back. The other ones just kind of took off.
And that made Jesus headlines.
Right. And it's I think sometimes we look at it and we say, oh, okay, I've been healed. I'm good. And we keep it to ourselves. But man, that's the power of what Jesus does. When transformation happens, it shouldn't be transformation just for you and your own edification. It should be a possibility to transform other people's lives and change their own perspective. And I think that's what you see, like with the text you've been bringing up here, is that it moves in that direction. So for me personally, I think that there always seemed to be sort of like this divine agenda moving towards this idea of redemption. But I don't exclude the fact that people should, go to God to get healed. But I think when you come to get healed, what is my response going to be, right? And he showed us that all through the Old Testament is that when God would act on behalf of the people, the response should always be glorifying God, bringing praise to God. That was automatic. It should have been automatic. And unfortunately, we see people that don't take it that way.
So we have lots of different things that are at play here that can go off the rails.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm not going to do social justice or social help without the gospel. Well, that's partly true, but right.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to do any social work and only do the gospel.
Right.
Well, again, goes off the rails. You got to have both. Right.
Yeah.
Then there are those people who are like, hey, if you heal me, then I've got to give my life to Jesus.
Yeah.
There's a string attached. Well, I want to let you know that Jesus wants to heal you just because you need it, but you should be responding towards him on the deeper level. So there's lots of things that are at play, and I think they all make up the perfect recipe when they're put in the appropriate amounts, right? But you don't want to make the recipe without all the ingredients in the right amounts at the right times and all the instructions that come along with it. So yes, I want to help people that need their firewood stacked. I want to step through the opportunity for them to say, why are you doing this? And say, well, it's because Christ loves me. And I'm doing this because Christ loves you, but I'm just going to hope that you want to have more of a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's lots at play here, and it can go off the rails when we don't get it in the proper recipe, in the proper amounts at the proper times.
I heard a pastor, maybe it was you, talking about the blue jean gospel, this idea that, the gospel that we operate in is the idea that we put on our blue jeans and we go and we serve Jesus in that way, which is the idea that we're not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to get in the midst of a situation to bring healing both spiritually and physically. And I think we practice that very well here. I mean, we see it operating on multiple levels, and it's something that we should constantly keep telling ourselves. This is just as much a part of the gospel as anything else. Like you just said, bringing somebody cold water, giving them food, stacking their wood, whatever it is just as much a part of the redemption story as sharing the love of Jesus with them and what eternity should look like. And I think it's so beautiful, especially here. People will work in the coffee connection, or they'll do janitorial work, or whatever it is that we do here, or helping a neighbor, or doing whatever it is. And the attitude, I think you've done well to train us that is just as much important as anything else, because it opens the avenue and door to do that. And I think Jesus was brilliant. He was a genius at it. Obviously, he's perfect at doing it, but he would set the stage for the possibility of them to then activate it in themselves, because when that healing transformation happens, we are empowered to do way more than we ever did before, because we're not now encumbered by the problem, the sin, and the sickness, and whatever it is. Now we're free to do whatever we need to do. And God constantly is stoking that fire in our faith, saying, hey, look at, you were healed, you were changed. And it makes the message so much more powerful when we share it with people. Like, I was blind or was deaf or whatever it is. That story becomes so much more impactful than anything else. And the testimony becomes, 10 times better, for people, but it's amazing. So we're going into, this is the last Sunday for this series?
This coming Sunday will be the last.
So what were we talking about this Sunday?
This one is calling a woman a dog. Jesus calls a woman a dog, and so we're going to talk about that.
There'll be a lot of husbands with their heads down.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, and I'm already studying up on it, and it's super fun. And just amazing. And again, the Holy Spirit has put this thing together in a beautiful way that I wasn't even aware of. And so that's how good he is.
This is going to be good. I cannot wait for you to bring this one up.
Okay.
I'll be sitting there and I'll be trying to watch to make sure no hand slaps come against me or whatever.
Okay.
Those are kind of the texts where you're like, this is going to be kind of good, you know? Yeah. Is there a chance you might owe Lisa K $20 this Sunday?
I will avoid that at
You're
all
gonna
costs.
avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. I think you get a chance to see a little more of Jesus' sarcasm in this message coming up.
And he was very sarcastic.
I see lots of evidence for it as I read it.
One of the things I had one time I had a professor that talked about it, and I never saw it before ever. And he was talking about how sarcastic Jesus was, and he shows you in the original language, and he's like, if we read it like the way it was originally written, it sounds like this, like it would be a sarcasm today. And I thought that was so funny, because then after he said that, now every time I read the Bible, I'm like, this is sarcastic Jesus right here. I'm pretty sure this is sarcastic Jesus. Yep. Yeah. So I love it.
I've done this message before, and it'll be fun to be able to do it again. The posture and the position of Jesus when he says what he says also plays a very big role in this.
This is going to be good.
Yeah.
And so this is the last one. Yep. Now, is it possible do you know what your next series is going to be?
Yeah, my next series, I haven't titled it all the way yet, but it's basically when culture and the Bible collide.
Culture and the Bible collide. I like that.
Yeah. So what's happening in our world? What does the Bible have to say about it? And we're they're at odds. And so we're going to stick to the Word of God. So when culture and what's happening in culture collides with the Bible.
That's going to be good. That's going to be a good series.
And I've got some hot, very hot topics in that particular one.
Here we go.
I read them to the staff yesterday at the staff meeting, and I definitely got some people interested in that. Yeah. Number one was Sex Gone Wild.
Oh, well,
that was
boy.
one of them.
It's going to be a good one.
And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Trans I Am. We're going to be talking about that one. And then we have other ones like What is a Woman?
Oh.
And
What is a Woman, you said?
Yep. What is a Woman?
Oh, here we go.
Yep. And this is going to be a good one. It's called Tic Tac Time is Running Out.
Okay.
The influence that technology is having on our life and how it's pointing us to the fact that Jesus is coming back soon.
I like it.
So those are just some of the ones.
I'm looking forward to it. I think these are great headings for sermons. I mean, you're the pro at that. You know, come up with these headers. I mean, I didn't come up with Pigs Could Fly for my message. You came up with that title, and I didn't even think about that. And I'm like, it actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
But we also have to say that you and I are going to be teaching Wednesday Night Live.
Yes. Yeah, come on out and be a part of that. Tell us a little bit about yours.
I'm going to be teaching apologetics, which is basically not arguing your faith, but understanding your faith well enough to where you can make a statement.
Yep.
You can refute things that are coming against you.
And we came up with a really catchy title for that. Would you remember what it was?
You know what? I don't.
Yeah, Locked and Loaded.
Locked and Loaded. That's what it was. Yes. Thank you. Yep. Locked and Loaded is going to be the title for that. Remind me of that so I can make sure I get on the flyers.
Right.
Locked and Loaded. And then you are going to be teaching class.
Mine's Back to Science class.
Back to Science class.
So if this will be your second chance to take science when you didn't pay attention back in high school. Now you're going to get a chance to do it again, but we're going to do it from the biblical standpoint. So we got videos that we're going to watch and have discussion based on those videos. It's going to be great.
Professor Gary is going to be showing.
There we go. I should come with my little white lab coat.
I think you should get an honorary doctorate after that 6 weeks. I mean, I'll pull one in for you. Get an honorary doctorate for
You're always
teaching.
too kind.
We'll get you set up with them. Be Dr. Gary.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, hey, if our president can get a doctorate, you can get a doctorate. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But yours is a little more important.
So Lisa Kay and I are going to team teach this one together.
Awesome.
And so we've watched these videos and we're really impressed with them. And so we'll be showing those on Wednesday nights in the main sanctuary.
I love it.
And which will be great because then we'll put it up on the big screen and people can watch the video together, and then we'll lead the discussions afterwards, and it should be quite lively and fun.
I think it would be good. I think it's well needed, especially with all the things we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it for us on our podcast. Again, thanks for listening to us and spending this hour of your time listening to all the things that God's been laying on our hearts. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Until we see each other again, may God bless you.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission now.